What's up, everybody? This is Whisky in the Six. I'm Rob, here with my friend Chris from Shelter Point. We have an announcement for you guys, particularly for you American viewers tonight. But if you're not American, of course, you're welcome to stick around, share a drink with us. We are drinking some Shelter Point. And if you're in the U.S., you might be drinking some Shelter Point very soon as well. Chris, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Rob. How are you doing?
Doing well. So, big announcement. There are going to be 3 Shelter Points landing in the U.S. is it today?
As of now, we've just set up an online store for the US, and so it's live now. So you can link to it from our main website, shelterpoint.ca. From there, you have the online store. You can choose Shop US, and from there you'll be able to see three of our whiskies. So it is our single malt, our classic, our Ripple Rock, and our Smoke Point are all now available in the US.
So the classic and the Ripple Rock, unfortunately, I don't have with me. We tried to arrange it, FedEx, mix up, and all these other things as these things happen. But if you've been following around like this channel for a while, you know that I absolutely love Shelter Point, and I've reviewed both. I think batch 1 and 2, perhaps batch 3 as well, of the Ripple Rock. Incredible stuff. I love it. I always swear by it. And the classic is outstanding as well. And it's been, in my opinion, improved over the years as well. So the US is getting a very good example of what the classic looks like.
Yeah, we're super excited because the 3 that we've chosen to go into the US are probably our best, most accessible whiskies, and they cover a really nice broad spectrum as well. So the classic is, as you mentioned there, Rob. I'll just kind of put the bottle up there for everyone. It's got the lovely kind of the classic red label right in the middle there, and it's been, as you say, it's been improving over the years, and the improvement really in the last kind of 18 months or so has come from the fact we started to use a Solera system for it. So really enabling us to benefit from the range of barrels that we now have in our warehouse. So we've got obviously a good number of barrels, are kind of just over 3,000 barrels in the warehouse now, pulling off kind of some of those, the best ex-bourbon barrels that we have, but also there's in that Solera system, because we've got that space, that volume, we're able to put in a bit of a wine cask finish, the kind of sherry cask finishes going in there. There's a real range, and I think that gives the single malt just a fantastic depth, a really rich, mellow flavor. And it's my favorite whiskey. If I'm pouring a whiskey for someone who's never tried a single malt before, that's where I go, because it's just got that real accessible flavor to it, which is fantastic.
Yeah. So we do have a couple questions in the chat. I can pop them up. First of all, hello to the people joining us. There's about 31 in the chat at the moment. We have Thomas saying, Rob, you definitely turned me and my local whiskey community onto Shelter Point. One day our club will have a fine tasting of Shelter Point. Excellent.
Fantastic. Thanks, Thomas.
Claire the Third is asking, what is it, Scotch? Well, it's similar. It's a single malt made the same way, but it's made in BC, which I like to tell people it's the closest thing you'll get to a Scotch outside of Scotland.
Yeah, I would share that. I think I would say that if we were, I don't know how many thousand miles further east, then we could technically call ourselves a Scotch, but we're geographically unable to. Our equipment is exactly the same. Our two pot stills that we have are made for us by Forsyths, shipped across to us. So there is an authentic style of whiskey there being created by those pot stills, and the barley that we use is grown on the farm that surrounds the distillery. We get our water from the aquifer that's beneath us, so everything's coming from a really local sense, and it just kind of, we're really confident that we've got a really, really good quality whiskey now.
Yeah, it's excellent. I've raved about it for years. As a lot of my viewers know, I'm a big fan. Can you tell us exactly where you said that it's gonna be pretty much right across the U.S.? There's a whole bunch of states that are getting it.
There's a bunch of states that are getting it. We can't, unfortunately, it's not the full 50. It's not even the full kind of mainland 48, unfortunately. But we do have around 31 states where there is good coverage from the carrier. It's not guaranteed to everywhere, but there's good coverage. And then I think there's 14 where there is full coverage from the carrier. So That 14 is the likes of Arizona, California, New York, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Florida, Washington, Oregon. So
Wow.
a good range. And then within that, then there's kind of that wider spread where there's some coverage. And I think on the website, when you first go on and choose a product, you've got a zip code assessment there. So you can just type in your zip code and that will tell you whether you've got coverage from the carrier or not. So we recognize it's not ideal, but we want to get people as close to as they start to know whether it's possible or not, and always working to improve that. But I think for us, it's our first step into the States, and we're excited to be able to make it at all, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sad. It's great in a lot of ways, but it's also sad for us Ontarians that it's easier to get into the US than it is to get into Ontario, which is completely Ontario's fault, and we understand this. But
I think our ambition is to be listed in all of the Canadian provinces, and each one has their own unique challenges. Just to put it into context, it's only been the last few months we've been listed within the BC provincial liquor stores, and that's just for two of the products, just the single malt and our limited release Evans Family Reserve. So wherever we go, there's little challenges, and I think kind of as we have the scale now to be able to satisfy that market, and it's really now just putting the hard yards in to be able to say, okay, we have good quality product. We're confident there'll be a customer base for that, and the fantastic support you've shown us, Rob, you're really helping us to prove that. So that's that level of support, that recognition is really appreciated.
It's been my pleasure. I truly enjoy the product. So as a testament to that is why I'm not able to represent the Classic and the Ripple Rock tonight, because I've been through, believe it or not, at least 3 bottles of each. It's a fan favorite. A lot of my friends, especially my friends on the street, they really enjoy it. They've been pouring it for the last few years. It got us through COVID. So
perfect. Yeah. No, again, when you told me that you'd run out, then I took that as the compliment that it was, which is it's a popular choice. It's always a shame when you see bottles on the shelf and they're not going down at all. So that for us is fantastic to hear that. And I do feel that kind of the range that we've got going into States is our most accessible. There's a really good variation between them. Yeah. And different flavors for different palates, but it is just something which we're getting really great feedback from, which is fantastic.
Yeah, let's speak to that a little bit, because I have the Smoke Point. You already talked a little bit about the Classic, which is a Solera style whiskey, which I love the idea of that, because it's just going to get older and older, and there's potential for really, really old whiskey in there at one point.
Yeah, absolutely.
This one here, I think this is an older version, 53%. Do you remember which? Oh, this is a 2021 version. Yeah. So the newer one's at 50%, is it not?
No, the new one's 53 as well. We're keeping Smoke Point at 53%. I'll just hold up my kind of slightly open bottle here. So you can see we've maintained the color of the label there, the badge in the middle, but the illustration behind it has changed slightly. So if you can't quite see it on the camera there, so you'll have to buy a bottle. But when you do, you'll see that there's a nice illustration of the distillery there, showing how close we are to the sea, getting that fantastic coastal influence, but also the mountains behind us. And Smoke Point for me it's a fantastic product, because it really is starting to become a really authentic Vancouver Island style Scotch, to be honest, because the genesis of it, the original Smoke Point, was using Scottish barrels to bring a peaty flavor, that smoky peaty flavor into our whiskeys. Now, where we are, we don't have any peat in our process directly. Our maltings are done off-site. They're done by a third party, so we can't really add that peat into it at that process. Right. And all of our water comes from the aquifer beneath us. So again, there's no chance of getting a peaty influence into the water. But by using barrels from Scottish distilleries, then the whiskey, in the same way that you'd finish it off in a wine barrel or sherry barrel, finishing off in a peated whiskey barrel gave an element of that peaty essence. But for us, the risk with that process was very much that we can't guarantee we're always going to get those barrels. And so for Smoke Point to continue as a sustainable long-term proposition, we had to find our own way of creating that smokiness. And for us, the way that we did that, and a lot of innovation was happening a few years ago, where we're actually smoking our barrels. So literally putting them upside down over a smoker, letting the smoke from that infuse into the wood of the barrel. And we use local woods for that. So a bit of apple wood, a bit of hickory, but also some driftwood from the shore to get a little nice salty tang into that. Mm-hmm. And what it's added to the current version of Smoke Point is that real kind of campfire, beach fire type smoke.
Absolutely.
And for me, kind of on the island, then the amount of driftwood that's on the shore, then you'll see beach fires throughout. Whenever the sun's shining, there's a beach fire happening. And so that little campfire style smoke is always just in the air. And it's just a fantastic little aroma. And it's not too intense. I liken it to being like when you've been at a campfire last night, you put your jacket on the next day, you get that little release of smoke and it's a little memory of what was I up to last night? It's just that level. And it's fantastically kind of light but enjoyable smokiness. It's a really, really nice whiskey.
Yeah. And you nailed it with the saltiness. Like I find that the salt is most prevalent in the Smoke Point.
Yeah.
From my experience.
And I think, Smoke Point is probably, none of these are age statement whiskies. And the benefit of that is that we can choose the best barrels with the best flavor rather than limiting ourselves to a certain stock. But Smoke Point probably is kind of at the older end of that. It's probably around about kind of 8 years old. So it's had a bit more time in the warehouses. We are right beside the coast. So there is that coastal influence, that saltiness coming into it. So that's going to really be showing through in the Smoke Point.
So we do have a few questions. There's, I don't know if there's any that caught your eye on your end.
I was interested by Preston W saying Lagavulins using many virgin oak casks now, so they should be able to spare a few. Well, that would be lovely.
Yeah,
that would be nice. And I think that kind of gives me a little bit of a segue into the Ripple Rock, because that use of virgin oak for me, I think it's a really exciting area for single malts, to be honest, because it does give you totally different characteristics. And for us, the Ripple Rock, I'm going to show you the full bottle here so you can get a sense of it. You can just see the color of it.
Yeah. And
it's really dark for a single malt. And it does look, if you put it on the shelf in a liquor store, it looks almost like a bourbon because it's got that dark color. Yeah. And Ripple Rock is aged almost entirely in virgin oak barrels. And so for us, we were able to specify those. We get a number 4 char kind of applied to those barrels when they're down in the cooperages in Kentucky, shipped up to us. And that charcoal's got a lot of color to give to the whiskey along with that new wood. And so you get that color, you get that sweetness, and you get that slightly faster softening rate, that slightly faster sense of that maturation happening. So I'm really interested to see that Lagavulin are doing it. It's nice to know that what we think works is being used by more established and longer term names as well.
Yeah, and you know what? I think this is a perfect time for the U.S. to get Ripple Rock in particular, because Jack Daniel's is doing a single malt now as well. There's a whole bunch of different distilleries doing the single malt. So Ripple Rock translates very well, especially if they're predominantly bourbon drinkers. They can transition really well into Ripple Rock and then try the other expressions as well. I love Ripple Rock's always been one of my favorites. That doesn't last long on my bar, obviously.
I like to call Ripple Rock the gateway drug, because it's, if you're trying to introduce friends to a single malt, if you're a single malt drinker and you've got friends who are drinking bourbons or maybe kind of your more traditional Canadian whiskeys, and they're used to that sweet nose, that initial upfront sweetness, then Ripple Rock can deliver that. But also you've got that intensity from the single malt. 100% malted barley's got a huge amount of flavor to it. So it is a great one to use. It's got different characteristics, but it's a fantastic introduction to it. So it is a great whiskey. And I think it's my favorite. If I ever go camping, then I take Ripple Rock with me, because outdoors by the fire, it's just phenomenal. Really pops.
Yeah, no, it is great. I love it. So as far as other provinces, there's not really much activity there at the moment. We are trying to get into, or Shelter Point is trying to get into Ontario. I know that it's been a long.
Yeah, we're working hard with the LCBO to get in there, and the SAQ as well, getting into Quebec. We successfully improving our distribution into Alberta now. Kensington Wine Market have always been phenomenal. Their support for us has been fantastic and really appreciated. But now we're improving that distribution, so we're able to be kind of reaching more markets, getting out to more people, both in terms of stores but also on premise as well. So if you do see it there, then it's nice to have the option.
Yeah.
So, and then for other provinces too, as well. So I know we're hopefully going to be on the shelves in Nova Scotia in the near future. So making our way out east, skipping over Ontario, but we'll hopefully going to maybe get it from the other side. We'll never know.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's available in Alberta, it's available across Canada. In the way, like I like to explain to people, not necessarily, I mean, gray area. So let's leave it at that.
Well, we're in that gray area as well. If you do look at our online store, then from the Canadian one, then it does say ships to BC. But currently, if you I wouldn't say it outright, but if you place an order, then Canada, then you should receive a bottle. We'll leave it at that. So
yeah, let's leave it at that for now.
I saw the question you popped up there, Rob, just from Sasha, just saying that smoke and oak was a good one. Smoke and oak had its real genesis was in that smoking of the barrel. So if you like that smoke and oak flavor, then Smoke Point's going to be delivering a lot of that as well. So it's a really nice combination of those two concepts.
Yeah. This was in 2021. I had the opportunity to do a single cask selection with Shelter Point, and this is very, very similar to a smoke and oak. There's actually majority malted barley, single grain barley, and then malted wheat. So it's 2 grains in this one. Yeah. So this was really sweet, very different.
I think what is apparent if you look back through, I mean, Shelter Point, we've been going now for, it'll be 12 years this summer.
Wow.
And looking back through the bottling, through what's been done, there's a huge amount of innovation that's happened there. And that's testament to the team from the very beginning. They were really keen to explore, find out what worked best. And that's given us a fantastic amount of knowledge as to what works well and what doesn't work well, both in terms of the end product, but also in terms of customers as well.
Yeah. And
it does have, I mean, there's, as you mentioned there, you've got that combination within a single cask. You've got a combination of different grains there.
Yeah.
There have been rye in the past. There's been malted wheat in the past. We've got our Montfort whiskey, which is a single grain, 100% barley, just not malted. So there's lots of different things out there. We're using that now to build a really strong portfolio of products. We've got the 5 in total, the 3 that are going into the US, and then the Montfort, and then the cask strength single malt.
Right.
We're keeping those in Canada for just now, but if the US store really picks off, then we'll be hoping to add more to it as well. So that would be lovely to be able to do that. And it's just testament to the team over the years. They've worked really hard to build a good amount of knowledge about our process and our products to really create what is now, I think, a really strong range of whiskeys.
Yeah. And honestly, on the nose, you get a good amount of smoke. You get a good amount of like peat characteristic, or, the smoke that would indicate that this is very similar to a peated Scotch.
I think what I love about that whole concept, again, it was innovation on the part of the team. They were really keen to explore and see what would happen with it. And in the same way that a whiskey in a barrel will extract whatever's been in the wood before, you're getting that same with that peated whiskey. And that peat, the strength of that peat in those original whiskeys is so strong that it left behind loads in the wood for the smoke point to take out of it. So it's phenomenal. It's really, really nice.
Yeah, the smoke point's excellent. And the ABV, I mean, there was a question earlier about, is there going to be a cask strength expression in the US? And I mean, it's pretty close. It's 53%. So
it's kind of halfway up. We bottle at 46 as our standard bottling strength, and that means we don't need to chill filter. So all of the flavor, all of that fantastic mouthfeel is getting into that. We also don't add any color to our whiskeys either. No added color. So you really have just got that fantastic. The ingredients list is wonderfully short for our whiskey. It's barley, water, and yeast, and that's it. There's nothing else going into it at all. And all of that color is coming from those different woods. In terms of the cask strength, then, as I said before, if the sales in the US pick up and we're able to we've got a good, strong customer base, adding in some of our other whiskeys is not a problem. And our cask strength is essentially from the same Solera system as the single malt. So it's a Solera cask strength coming in at 58.7%. So really huge amounts of intensity. And speaking from the experiences we have here, when people are trying it, doing our tastings in the distillery, it's a whiskey that is just complemented continuously on its smoothness. It's a nearly 60% alcohol whiskey. People think it's going to totally blow their heads off. the genuine reaction is, oh my God, this is so smooth. And you've just got all of that intensity of flavor, all that long-lasting aftertaste that you get with the single malt, but just even more of it. It's phenomenal.
Whiskey on the West Coast. He's actually a gentleman that does reviews in BC as well. So perhaps I can introduce you guys to him in the near future. If you don't know him already, you may. He's probably had a chance to visit the distillery, unlike myself. My train of thought went there. Claire the Third said
he's just asking about the single cask program. The current status for single cask is that it's on hold, and the reason for that is kind of we tapped into a little bit already with your special release that you had, Rob. Is that what resulted from a really kind of extensive single cask program? Is there was a lot of different whiskeys out there, all with a Shelter Point name on it.
Yeah.
And single cask whiskey is always interesting, always exciting to have.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to replicate that. And so if you buy your whiskey from a store who's had a single cask release and you go back a year later to get another bottle, it's gone. You can't get that whiskey again. And that's great for collectors, great for enthusiasts, great for people who know their whiskey and want to explore. For people who are getting into their whiskey and want to be able to recommend it to their friends or buy a second bottle, it's a bit more challenging. And so we're in a process now where we've hit upon our key products, and we're sticking with them for probably for a couple of years, just to embed them into the market and give people a real sense of a consistent product. Once we're confident that that's happened, then we'll start considering that single cask idea. It's not gone away,
right?
But we're just in a process of just kind of, I guess, coalescing the brand a little bit, bringing something in which is consistent, and allowing customers to really get a feel for what's on the shelf, because we're pushing out into lots of new markets who aren't so familiar with us at the moment.
Right, exactly.
We need them to be confident that they can recommend that to their friend or buy a second bottle with knowing they're going to get what they're expecting.
Yeah, it creates an identity, a consistent identity, which is important. And a lot of like big name brands have to establish that identity, and then that's why people can buy certain brands blind, because they're able to consistently rely on the quality, right? So
yeah,
you guys are already doing a very good job of doing that. So I do have a question about the classic. Since it's a Solera style, what's usually the youngest that they're dumping into the Solera, like barrel wise?
Barrel wise, it's going to be around about 7 years as the youngest. So I mean, one of the benefits of having that no age statement is we can pick and choose, but we're also aware that we would like to develop the Solera long term into a 10-year-old age statement product. That's the goal. So we need to keep an eye on that as we're selecting those barrels, that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot and push everything back by a couple more years. And so we've got that in the back of our mind. But I mean, I would say on average, you're looking at kind of it's going to be a 7-year-old product. I mean, we have built ourselves in a barrel. Nothing younger than 5 gets bottled at all. So everything is 5 years or older at the very minimum. Generally, we're looking at 7 as an average for that. Ripple Rock is maybe a little bit younger, maybe 6-ish, and Smoke Point maybe 8-ish. But that's our kind of ballpark for the whiskeys. Yeah,
that's awesome, and that's a very commendable goal to get that up to 10 years old. The distillery itself is 12, and I know that you guys put away a lot of stuff, but I mean, for it to be a Solera cask at 10, there's going to be some really old whiskey in there eventually.
There definitely is, and I love the fact with the Solera cask that you're just building flavor. Every time you're putting a new set of barrels in there, you're adding to that. You're just creating increased depth, increased richness to it. So I'm really excited for how that's going to evolve and change over the next 12, 24 months as well. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. So I don't know if many American distilleries use the Solera cask system. I don't think there are very many. I know Glenfiddich does with their 15-year-old. Just to explain it to the U.S. A little clearer, essentially, majority of people that have been whiskey fans for a long time, they make infinity bottles. So it's like a giant infinity bottle. It's essentially is what it is, right? Like you're always going to have a little bit of that first whiskey that you added to that Solera, as long as you don't drain it empty. So
yeah, no, that is absolutely it, and it is. I don't think we'll be getting close to being empty before we start to top it up again, because we really want to build that continuity. I mean, there will be a gradual evolution as that flavor starts to kind of improve and change with that continuous aging, but also those new barrels going in. But we want to make sure that is a really gradual evolution. And I was upstairs with our tasting team just yesterday, and there's a row of nice, very neatly organized plastic vials on the tasting table upstairs as they were just doing their cask sampling for the next Solera. And it's just the range that's in there, the different colors, because you've got different barrel finishes in there. It's really cool to see that, what that progression is going to be like over the next kind of 2 or 3 years. It's going to be fantastic.
Absolutely. Do we miss anything about, is there an idea of how many, so we said New York, basically a lot of the big cities or big states anyway are getting it. Do we know if Texas will be getting it? Because that's one of the big
ones. Texas is on the list, but unfortunately it is within that partial coverage.
Okay.
Now, I would imagine that's mainly because Texas is I've heard it's quite big. Yeah. And so possibly the couriers aren't always going to be able to get everywhere they need to.
Right.
And I would love to be confident about everything, but the reality is that it's best to enter your zip code into that zip code checker when you arrive at the site and just see. And hopefully we're covering a good proportion of people with what we have there. And as I say, we're always looking to improve that. And if you have tried to access us and it doesn't work, then let us know. I mean, my email is chris@shelterpoint.ca. Drop me an email and tell me your problems, and we'll try and fix them for you.
Yeah. That's what I love about Shelter Point is that despite the fact that it's getting rather big, and there's a lot of whiskey being put away, it's still a very family feel, and you can contact who you need to get things done. So
I think we're just tipped into double figures in terms of number of employees.
Wow.
We're just kind of sorting out, making sure we're ready for the summer season in the store. So yeah, I mean, it's in terms of our availability and the history, then it can feel like we've been around for a while, and we have, but it still is a very small team, and I've been here for just over a year now, and it's been really enjoyable. Just lovely people, super welcoming. The ability to just get a download from the likes of James, who's been our distiller since day one, dropping his experience and his knowledge has been fantastic. Jacob's been here for kind of, very nearly that whole time as well. And their experience, the stories that they've got, where stuff's come from, where ideas happened is just been brilliant. So it's been really, really a fun place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple questions for you.
Yeah.
So Christopher Malloy asks, any work with mezcal casks? That would add another smoky element to it.
We would love to do that. It's definitely on our wish list of barrels that we'd like to acquire. Is that mezcal just another way of getting that smokiness? And just, I think that spirit of innovation still remains within. Even though we've got those 5 products are pretty locked down in terms of flavor, we do have a 6th one, the Evans Family Reserve, named after Patrick Evans, who is the ultimate innovator. It's him who founded the distillery, and he always was trying new things. That's why we have that range of different products and different ideas. And so we wanted to honor that. So the Evans Family Reserve is always going to be the playground for us. So currently it's a wine cask finish. We've got some rum barrels, which are pretty much perfectly ready to go now. Some from Barbados, some from Martinique. That's going to be the next iteration of the Evans family. That's going to be the Caribbean rum cask finish. We acquired some Oloroso sherry barrels. So when that's gone through, there are always going to be limited releases, kind of maybe 3 barrels, 4 barrels worth at very most. And that gives us a chance to say, okay, that's finished, on to the next one. That's the playground. So I'd love to be able to have a mezcal finish or something else like that to go. And I know one of the things that Jacob's doing regularly is he's scouring the barrel brokers, the barrel warehouses, to see what's available to see what we can bring in, because it may not work, but you've got to try. And sometimes it works out brilliantly.
Yeah. Another question here. Any plans to work with local or Canadian peat at Shelter Point. So that has been done, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, as they say there, McAloney's is starting to do that. I think also down in Washington, then some of the distilleries down there are also exploring that. It's definitely something that we're interested in. We're challenged a little bit by not doing our own maltings. So the kind of the scale of the malting that we have done with our barley, it needs to be done by a pretty big outfit. We had 200 tons done early this year, so it needs to be kind of somewhere which has got the scale to cope with that. So they don't have, then that means they don't have the custom options to say, oh, we can do 2 or 3 tons here, we'll try that. The long-term goal for us is to have our own malting. That would be phenomenal. Yeah. At that point, we can have space to play. I mean, some of the smoking and some of the work that was done with the barrel smoking, then they were playing around with some peat options as well. I don't know how much of that really took and how that worked, whether that's going into some of what is building into Smoke Point. Well, I need to look into that and find out. But it is definitely a flavor which it's so built into the kind of the single malt, the Scotch whiskey flavor profile. Yeah. It's not. I mean, Vancouver Island. Then you'd never use peat as a fuel on Vancouver Island because there's quite a few. But it does bring qualities to a whiskey which you can't get any other way. So right. It's definitely something it's on the list. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, awesome. I can answer this next question for you.
Okay.
It should be available as of
now,
I guess today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So get that order placed.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's in New York, or you can get it in New York as of now.
Yeah.
So through the site at the moment, is that how they're going to do it?
Yeah. So again, just to go to shelterpoint.ca, that's our website. And then on the online store section there, you'll get 2 options, a Shop Canada and a Shop US. So choose that Shop US option and it'll be in, because it's a Shopify based site, and you'll be able to get access to the 3 whiskeys. So
yeah. K&L has Shelter Point at $55 here in Cali. K&L is such a really cool shop. They have a lot of really great stuff. So that's awesome. You guys got into California a while back, right?
We did, but it was never through a consistent channel.
Okay.
And that was, I think whatever was in place, COVID, I think knocked a lot of things sideways. And there were kind of some agreements which lapsed, some agreements which kind of we sold a bit and then things went quiet. So there is Shelter Point out there. I was hearing stories from someone who had Shelter Point on the shelf in Chile. Now, how on earth that got to being on the restaurant shelf in Chile, I have no idea, but it's out there. It pops up in random places. And one of the nice things about the branding is it's nice and consistent. So Shelter Point will always look pretty much like Shelter Point since day one. And so if you see it on the shelf, you know what you're going to be able to get. But it is the US has been patchy and inconsistent. So what we're hoping now with this direct to consumer model is that for those people who are in those areas where we have coverage, then again, nice long-term consistent approach.
Yeah. So a couple of these questions were answered already. Can you guys hear us okay? Because T-Pop is saying that there's no sound. Maybe that's just on his end. I think there has been other questions and nobody else has said that. So I think that's just a one-person problem. You can have them shipped now from their website. Sugar Kitty is reinforcing here. How old is the juice, Claire? This was already said, but the classic is a Solera, but probably no less than 7 years old. The Smoke Point is around 8 years old, and the Ripple Rock is what, 5 or 6?
Yeah, I'd say 6 is a good ballpark there. So again, as we continue to build, then we're going to be able to start getting kind of increasingly old with those ones. Yeah. Ripple Rock, the nature of the product, then being in virgin oak, it will take on those qualities pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so possibly Ripple Rock will always remain as a relatively young whiskey. But the single malt will be increasingly creeping upwards in age, and likely the Smoke Point as well.
This is probably for you. I didn't read the whole thing. It's really cool to see how Shelter Point has grown. Great opportunity in front of you guys, expanding into new markets. Rob's been singing your praise. Yeah, that's true.
and much appreciated. And thank you, Whisky on the West Coast. Well, I think I saw a comment from you earlier coming from the Fraser Valley. But if you ever are on the island, then make your way up here. Let me know. Let me know you're coming. It'd be great to introduce you to kind of the distillery and our products. So it'd be fantastic. And the distillery is open. If you ever are on the island, we're open Wednesdays through Saturdays. Hoping to increase that to Sundays, but we'll see. But Wednesday through Saturday, tours and tastings. You probably get to meet me because we're a small team, so there's not many of us.
Yeah, I need to make my way out there as well. It'll happen eventually.
Sure. Absolutely.
So I'm just scanning through the comments over here just to make sure I didn't miss anything. P-Boss is saying, click that thumb. Does Shelter Point? Here we go. Here's a question for you.
The collective was a fun project, and I think it's on the list. I mean, just to introduce it to the group. I mean, the collective was utilizing the fact that we do have a range of barrels and giving the people who in the company who don't normally get a chance to be involved in that barrel selection process a chance to do a bit of sampling and bring their own opinions and flavor choices into the process. So the collective ultimately was a mixed grain combination. It was a bit of unmalted and a bit of malted barley whiskey going in there, different barrel profiles, different choices, and it was really one for the entire team here to be able to feel they had a hand in the choice of the whiskey. Fantastic! It turned out a wonderful product. It was really nice. I'm looking forward to us when we do bring that back because I'll get a chance to have my say. But I'm not trusted yet to be involved in that process. I'm working hard. I'm drinking as much whiskey as I can to get my palate tuned and ready. But it is it's a fun idea, and the list of things we'd like to do is a lot longer than the number of hours in the day at the moment. But we're steadily working through them, so it will be coming back at some point.
Awesome. Branding is really nice. Did you? I guess this is a question for you as well. Or if Jacob's in the background, maybe he can help you with this one.
I think. I mean, the original branding. The very, very first logo was different from what we have now. It was much more of a kind of an SPD and a cursive script. But pretty rapidly it transformed into what we have in terms of what's in the center of that. It's going to get that.
Yeah, let me get you in.
So we have that really nice kind of classic Shelter Point Distillery badge in the middle of the bottle there, and that has been consistent for nearly the very beginning in terms of actually what's labels on the bottles, and that's been fantastic. But what we have been doing is just evolving that logo. So if we go back, I'm going to reach behind me and choose an older bottle. So just to bring an older bottle in there, you can see from that one we've got a slightly lighter touch pencil drawing, slightly more old-timey style of drawing there, which really fitted the brand as it was getting started. And then as we're growing, as we're increasing our visibility, we wanted something that was a little bit crisper. And so we've gone to a logo which is a little bit more sharper, a little bit more drawn in, and then slight variation for the smoke point. And this is also on the cask strength as well. I'm going to move that into the middle there. You can just about see a slightly more colorful logo, more like a watercolor style than a pencil drawing. So still that same nice logo in the middle, but slightly different image on the back there. And that's going to potentially, that will continue to evolve and just be something which is just really focusing on that, the being recognizable. If you see it on the shelf in the bar or in a store somewhere, it's going to be something you can see clearly and pick up and recognize.
This is a cool, it's funny because the same company represents both Gordon MacPhail and Shelter Point in Canada. So that might be a cool little venture that, although Shelter Point's not really sharing their casks at the moment.
We're not. I mean, if you're a member of the SMWS, then we did have, they did buy 3 of our barrels. I think it was early 2020, just before everything got shut down. The SMWS Canada team were out here, and they recommended some barrels, and they got sent back to the UK. So we have had a bottling of three of our barrels through SMWS. We're 152. I shouldn't tell you that probably, but we're 152 just for the distillery number, and point one was released at the Victoria Whisky Festival, which was really exciting for us. And I think point two and point three are out there, different locations. So keep an eye out for that one. And that's kind of an SMWS and Gordon MacPhail have a little bit of overlap in terms of the way that they approach things. So we'll get there. But it'd be lovely if Gordon MacPhail were interested. I'm sure they could. It'd be interesting to talk to them for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's Gordon MacPhail is they that would be a really cool connection between them.
Yeah, it absolutely would be.
I have a soft spot for both of you guys, so that would be pretty cool.
Oh, there you go. Match made in heaven.
There you go. How have the new Canadian alcohol taxes affected Shelter Point? I guess they just hit recently, so it's hard to tell at the moment.
It's hard to tell. I mean, I think it's far too early. I mean, the fact that it's affecting everyone across the board means that your people's choices for choosing what they want to buy is going to be the same, whether it's for anything in that single malt category.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's going to be a significant difference, but obviously we're at a time when kind of people are tightening their belts for various reasons anyway, and that's going to affect decision making. But maybe possibly what people will do is they'll kind of just make choices where based on they're going to buy something really tasty rather than buying 2 bottles of something less tasty. Who knows? So we'll see.
So Claire III is representing the United States when he asks this question over here. Is Rob going to get another pill? Perhaps one exclusively available to the U.S.
Well, if we get to a point when things open up again, then it's going to be really exciting to see how things go with that. Because by the time we get to, I mean, as I mentioned before, we're not going to be doing that for the foreseeable future. But when we do, then the range of barrels that would be available, that would be of age coming into that level of maturity, would be pretty broad. So it'd be amazing to see what came out of that. But I can only say maybe on that one. Nothing more than that.
I'll take a maybe. You're saying there's a chance. All right, Chris. So, is there anything else you'd like to share? Maybe go over quickly where these guys can find you, how they can find you, and and what they can find maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, for kind of viewers from the States, then come to shelterpoint.ca. You'll see kind of a range of information about us too. But that online store, you'll have the choice now. There's a little US flag. You can click on that when you go to the online store, and that will take you to that Shopify site, and that's where you'll be able to get the single malt, which is that Solera system one we've talked about, the Ripple Rock, which is virgin oak. So a little bit more kind of bourbon-esque in terms of those notes. Thanks, Rob. And also the smoke point as well, with that really delicious kind of campfire smoke to it. So that's where to go for US customers. Be really excited to see kind of how that takes off over the next few weeks and months. We're really hopeful it's going to get a good response. And the more people who buy the whiskeys there, the more we can broaden out those product offerings too, and bring in that cask strength or our Bonfit single grain as well would be really nice.
Yeah, awesome. And then Claire III is just saying, so you're saying there's a chance. I'm not sure you're familiar with the reference, but it's a Dumb and Dumber reference. I don't know if you're watching. Jim Carrey, fellow Canadian.
Nice.
Chris, thank you so much. Anytime you want to do this, I love hanging out with you guys. If you guys, this is a lot of fun, and I feel bad that I don't have the classic and the Ripple Rock to sit alongside with you. It was the unfortunate part is, guys, that it was sent out to me, and just I missed FedEx twice because unfortunately FedEx doesn't understand that people work during the day. So
no, FedEx is they haven't been perfect. They've been better than some of the other couriers we've used, but I think so much of it comes down to your local FedEx driver. If he or she are a fantastic kind of a good person, then they'll try hard, and if they've just tick in the box, then you'll find yourself with a little slip on your door. Even if you've been home, they'll claim they've been when they haven't been. So it's a difficult one, but it is a challenge. But if it's okay, Rob, can I just flag up a couple of things that are coming up in the future as well? Will that be okay?
Absolutely. This is a free forum. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, coming up in June of this year, we're going to be releasing the next iteration of our 10-year-old. So there aren't very many barrels left that are 10 years old, but we have a release coming out in the summer that's going to be primarily coming out through the BC Liquor Store's Summer Spirits release. But also, so I'm mostly talking to BC customers here, but there is going to be a release coming out to some private stores as well. And so hopefully that's going to stretch out into Alberta as well as BC stores. There will be some availability on our own website as well. So again, limited numbers for that one, but out there for people who are interested. So coming up in June, keep an eye on our newsletters that we send out regularly for that one. And later on this year after that, then we'll be releasing that rum cask that we talked about. So Caribbean rum, combination of Barbadian and Martinique rum. I had a sample of what is likely to be close to the final release a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, just wonderful, wonderful whiskey. So really excited about that one. That will be coming out as an Evans Family Reserve release, probably around about August, September time. So again, if you're interested in that, then keep an eye out because that's coming up too.
Awesome. Yeah. I had an opportunity to try, I think 3 different types of the 10-year-old, which was like the standard 46, the cask strength, and then the Prohibition, which is also 10 years old, was it not?
That's correct. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So those are all excellent. So I'm really looking forward to the new 10-year-old release, and very much looking forward to the Evans Family release. That's going to be really cool in rum casks. Yeah. Does that one have an age statement as well, or?
No, the Evans Family again it's not age statements. I would need to find out kind of where we're talking approximate ages for that one, because that is in the barrel now. We've actually got some of those barrels are actually as part of our barrel display here in the distillery, and I can tell you that the rums, the barrels that we got from Barbados have had a bit of a life. There's some interesting shapes going on with the end caps of the barrels there. It's definitely not flat. So there's some stories to be told by those barrels, I can tell you.
Well, looking forward to it. It's going to be really fun getting those ones. Hopefully, Alberta gets it so that the rest of the country can get it as well. Chris, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight, and hope you guys enjoyed this. It seems like from the chat, you guys had a good time. A bunch of people are saying that they enjoyed it. So this was a lot of fun, and you guys are welcome anytime. So,
well, thank you so much for having me, Rob. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for your support, and thank you to everyone who's out there on the chat too, because doing things like this with live questions and stuff is always fun. So always enjoy the opportunity.
Yeah, just stay on the line. I'm going to say bye to these guys, and then we will do our proper goodbyes offline. Cheers, everybody. Hope you guys have a great Easter weekend. Whether you are religious or not, enjoy the long weekend. Cheers, everybody.